this computer. Let's do that. Okay, hey, this is Issara with UX and Motion. Welcome. Live Q&A session. This is going to be great. I've got a ton of questions I was asked in the forum, so I'm just going to blast through those questions. Yeah, it's going to be fun. And if you have any other questions in the chat, this is a good time to ask me anything. There's a raise hand thing. I can unmute you and get on video. We can talk and all that stuff. So I've got like 40 or so questions to get through. So we'll just do a quick intro to myself in case anybody's lost and they're like, this is not why I'm here, is to listen to this dude. So my name's Issara. I have a company called UX and Motion, and I work with UX designers primarily. I train them with UI animation. That's what I've been doing. So I've been teaching workshops. I've been training design teams at places like Dropbox, Slack, Kayak, Salesforce, Oracle. So I'll go in and I'll work with the team. I'll train the team and I'll have like a workshop. And yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing. So that's been good. And I've got classes and stuff. Sorry, this is my first time doing this. So this format. And so I'm seeing a lot of folks coming in not muted. So I'm just having to mute them for background noises and hopefully won't get Zoom bombed. Although I find that highly flattering if someone's like going to go to the trouble to hack your Zoom meeting. You know, it's like, that's nice of them, you know, to do that. I was on a call that got Zoom bombed. So anyway, I've been doing that. I've got some After Effects courses. So some people know of me through my After Effects videos on YouTube and things like that. And then some folks know of me through stuff I've written on Medium, and maybe you were in a workshop that I taught. I don't know. But I do get a lot of questions, and hey, we're in permanent COVID whatever apocalypse, so let's get questions answered because people have questions, so it's important. So I'll do a combination of screen share stuff, just because I'll need to supplement, and some things I can just answer conversationally. So I've got this list here on my computer I'm just going to be going through, and if you have any, like I said, if you have any questions that you're like, dude, this guy's not answering my questions, feel free to chat. There's a little chat box here. If you're unfamiliar with that, I don't know what to tell you. We're all hopefully UX designers. You should be able to figure that one out. And yeah, I mean, I can speak on other topics too. I mean, dude, you know, I like cooking, being in nature, you know, foraging for wild foods, ancestral diets, Norwegian forest cats. I've got chickens. We could talk about chickens. I mean, dude, we talk about dating. I was a whole into this dating strategy stuff for years and got a great Ukrainian girlfriend that I've been with for 10 years. So I can talk about that, making a relationship work for 10 years. That's good stuff, right? All right, cool. Let's jump in. So so the breakdown of these questions, I got like 40 questions right off the bat, and I'll try and blast through these. And I kind of tagged them up. So the taxonomy, so the general tags here, I've got questions on motion brand, motion and career, motion and design systems, handing off motion, installing plugins and stuff, miscellaneous questions, motion to background, like you've got a motion background, you want to transition UX, got portfolio questions, strategy questions, testing questions, questions about tools. It's kind of the main buckets that we have on this one. So okay, so I'll just go through this list. So question, how to explore motion unique to your brand? So this is a really good question that I get asked a lot. And I primarily have like two answers for this. One is that motion is just a core part of the products nowadays anyway, whether we're talking about just basic transitions or onboarding or loading animations or skeleton screens or whatever you're talking about, motion is a core part of that. Now, that doesn't mean that every part of the motion should reflect the brand. It just means that motion is a part of design now. So, you know, you don't need to be expressing all this kind of stuff. You can just use like typography, I think is a great example. You can use expressive typography if that's appropriate. You can also just use typography that just helps legibility and readability. You don't have to go crazy with it. So motion is like that too. So primarily, you know, people have a hard time separating timing from the visual, like the things that are actually moving. So I focus a lot on timing because that's a really important aspect of motion. And when it comes down to it, like you just want, for the most part, you just want good timing, right?
You see this health account, Wiener Schnitzel.
Some person there. Motion is just like, you just want good timing. And if you have an expressive brand, like you're doing like children's games or like a children's app or like video games, or you just have a brand that's very expressive, then it makes sense to maybe go off and do some explorations that are most expressive motion. But for the most part, you just want to focus on getting it right first and foremost. And we'll be talking about motion standards later on, but I just kind of want to talk about my perspective on that and why that's important. And if you're unmuted, just you can mute yourself, mute some background noise. All right, here's a career question. Where can you find jobs in UX that are more motion centric? I'm in a tech heavy city, Austin, but jobs here seem to be either UX or a combination of the two with no real focus on animation. So I work with UX designers primarily, where motion is more of an add-on to the UX skill set. That being said, there's a huge range out there, although you got to factor in like what's going on right now with the job industry and COVID and all that kind of stuff, which is to say that not everybody is hit hard. Definitely, I've talked to some people who are just like struggling, some people who are just wiped out, and some places that are like just pedal to the metal, right? So that's an important context, just that we're talking about this right now in 2020, end of July. So, everything's changed in the last couple months. Everything could change again in the next couple months. So there's it's a lot of volatility in the market. That being said, some teams are really looking for UX designers, and if you have a motion skill set, that'll put you over the top, especially if you do the things that I'm going to be talking about later in this talk. Other teams, they're hiring motion designers that are being managed by UX designers. So it really depends. There's a wide range, and I would just be mindful of that. If you're looking for a job, really be mindful of that in your portfolio. If you really specifically want a certain kind of thing, then design your portfolio around that. And if you're more open to hustling and you just want whatever, and that's kind of how I've done things a lot, is I just hustle. I like to hustle and get work. Then your portfolio could reflect that as well. I got a question. Can you help me in career opportunities? If you have an awesome portfolio, I'll check it out and keep it on my list when I get pinged for gigs and jobs. So if you have something awesome, yeah, send it my way, put it in the chat. This is a career question. Where can we UI animators fit in a UX process from beginning to end? Sometimes I get confused because it seems like it's not a full-time job. Maybe it's more like an extra hard skill on my belt. Again, it depends on the team and the culture. So like I've talked to people who have been motion designers who have come into UX teams and have really struggled because they didn't have any UX knowledge whatsoever. And so they get really siloed. People look at them just as like animators. And what I found is that for the most part, people want to contribute. They don't like being sidelined and marginalized a lot. So, I highly encourage you to learn a little bit of UX. And if you're asking about like where, and I'll talk about this more, I have a more specific question around this, but if you're looking to find out where UX fits in at the beginning or the end, again, it really depends on the team. It depends on the product, depends on the culture. One of the things I talk about is how to make a really good case for motion. So I'll just do a quick share here. Here's a resource. Here's a free resource that I have. Where you can it's on my blog here. And I just dropped this. So it's how to sell motion to stakeholders, right? Which is like one of the top questions I get asked. I've got like a free PDF script thing that you can use. I teach in my workshops, and it's really about making a values-based case for motion. I'll just put that link in the chat. And really what that comes down to is, let's see here, more chat, is you have to be able to speak to the value, right? Like when you're having conversation with stakeholders, don't speak to the mechanics of your project, like, describing the things that's happened. You want to speak to the value in terms of the user, the product, and the business, right? You want to be able to speak to those three things. So the script helps you do that. And let's see here. Where's I gotta get back to my meeting. I I always lose the back to meeting button with Zoom. It's amazing. All right, let's do this. Stop share. Okay, cool. And somebody is not muted. All right, and let's keep going. Okay, cool. Design systems. How do I add animations to design systems? So yeah, I have a couple questions. I'm able to just answer these all together. If a motion design system is possible, what kind of structure and like elements and logic do you suggest? How do you classify animations in terms of element behavior, component behavior, Lottie animations? Is there any default or guidelines to choose for duration for animating between elements or screens? So all of these kinds of questions relate to design systems, motion design systems. Okay, so yeah. So how to add animations to a design system. Lots of teams are doing it, and they just start where they start. There's no like boilerplate thing. My biggest recommendation is you go to Google Material Motion. I'll post this link in there too. If you haven't spent hours on this, let's share the screen. If you haven't spent hours here, you really should if you're into this topic. Google spent a lot of time developing taxonomy structures for Google Material Motion. There's a ton of great content here in terms of not just the examples, but how they really think through these things at a deep level. And I'll get into that more with motion standards, but this is a good place to start for that. And, you know, I would say start with a basic taxonomy, meaning that, you know, I tend to focus on like, you know, some of the basics, right? So if you have like a skeleton screen, okay. If you have loaders, okay. If you have onboarding screens, okay. But essentially what you really want to focus on are components and things, and designing a scalable system, right? So it's looking at things like timing, which is easing and duration, and we'll get into exactly what those numbers are in a little bit. You also want to look at this idea of traversing. So timing in motion design systems, it's important to understand that you know, when things traverse larger distances, they need more time in order to be tracked by users. If they're traversing shorter distances, they need less time. So then you need to sort of like at a minimum come up for 3 different scenarios of like small traversing, medium, and large. And then, you know, have the timing reflect that accordingly so it doesn't appear too fast. Because if you just pick one duration for everything with the same easing, that could work fine for smaller things, but if it's a larger thing, it'll move, you know, it'll just pop. It'll be too fast. It'll look like a cut for users. So in terms of structure, elements, and logic, you know, I tend to start with easing and duration first, which is just what timing is. You know, I would include rendered examples. I would have some kind of internal resource. You know, I've seen people use Keynote. I've seen people use PowerPoint. I've seen people use internal websites. Really whatever works. You know, there isn't really like the right way to do it. There's just the wrong way, which is to not start doing it, right? That's just kind of how life is in general. Let's see here. Okay, so then, you know, classifying, sure, you can talk about basic taxonomy. And again, it's like you have transitions, you have components, you have, you know, loading, onboarding, pull to refresh. I mean, your projects may have it, they may not have it. They may have other things. They may have different kinds of components, whether you're working on like an app or a website or something else, icon, animations, you know, gestures, transitions, all these things. It's kind of how I tend to classify these things. Again, your product may not need all that stuff. It'd be good to just find out what you do need and find out, really, I think the key thing is you want to go for quick wins and impress people. I have kind of this twofold strategy: quick wins and impress people, and then also designing a scalable ecosystem so that you can provide that leadership in tools and resources for your team. What are your thoughts on Protopie? People seem to freaking love it. You know, again, I use After Effects because there's no limitations, but it doesn't do interactive. A lot of people like it. That's one of the top 3 motion prototyping tools I've seen out there. I love this question. Can you enter the UX field if you are self-taught? Most of my friends are self-taught. I'm self-taught. Yeah. What I tell people, I'll probably repeat this several times. If you're looking to just get in and get the basics, I would spend no more than $100 and no more than a week. I would watch a couple of cheap classes on some cheap site, get the basics, get the top 1 or 2 or 3 books. Don't buy them from Amazon, buy them from your local bookstore so you can support local businesses. And if they don't carry it, you can call them up and special order the book. I do that all the time. Just don't buy it from Amazon. Even though I have friends who work there and everything. But yeah, that's my advice. Like, you can learn this stuff quickly. You can probably watch free classes online, but just don't go crazy with it. Don't spend thousands of dollars. I'm sorry, if you have already, fine. But if you're just getting started, I would say just, learn the basics with a $100 class and go from there, and don't obsess over it. Honestly, I know tons of professionals in the field who are self-taught, and they just don't, they don't obsess over it, because, yeah, anyway. Talk about that more. Any default or guidelines to choose for duration or animating between elements on screen? Yeah, okay, so Google, okay, so yeah, so I teach, so in terms of default animations, I do have a whole module of this in this certification course. I have a module on motion standards, and I'm gonna talk about that. Standards, motion standards. Okay, motion standards, cool. So and I'll talk about 4 important easing values right now. So you can get back pocket durations like from the Google material link that we talked about. In terms of easing, so again, when you're talking about timing, when you're talking about motion standards, you're talking about timing. When you're talking about timing, you're talking about duration easing. The Google taxonomy is pretty good. They kind of went really deep with it. In terms of easing, there's 4 basic easing systems. So one is cubicbezier.com. I'll post these links, where you can just literally make up your own curve. You can take these values, and these are values that translate. You can go to easings.net. This is another system that is used widely. These are parametric mathematical things. These are not drawn with handles, although it looks like it. They're not. There's different properties here. And then there's the Google material. Yeah, let's see here. There's material. We already looked at that. Material motion. They have a whole section on speed, I think it's in. Duration and easing. They have a whole section here on easing, and then the other one is iOS easing, and they have a whole thing on, where is that? Let's see here. I have this green eco search engine, but sometimes it doesn't give me the things that I want. Okay, so we have developer from Apple. Now, a note on the iOS easing, they have these things, these bizarrely named easing functions. See this cam media timing function name bizarreness? It's like, clearly, thanks engineers. So these things are easing functions. So meaning that they update these all the time behind the scenes. Like I've seen, like, each time they update iOS, I notice when they change the curve. I don't, you might not notice the easing, but I notice the easing. Meaning that if you wanted to apply these one-to-one in After Effects, it's not that simple. I have easing values that I use and that I have included in the motion standards module for iOS and Android. So that's kind of the 4 easing systems. So here's the thing. So if you're designing motion, people make this mistake all the time. If you're designing motion on a project, first thing you want to do, first thing, number 1, I do this before I even start designing anything. I talk to engineers. I say, hey, look, designing motion, how can I help you help me? And we work it out, like what kind of easing systems they can use, right? Whether it's just for iOS or Android, or if they prefer cubic Bezier, or if they like easings.net, I find out. And then I build those in After Effects one-to-one, and then I tell them, hey, look, I'm using this easing here. And we'll get to some handoff questions in a bit, but like that's specifically how I handle that. I get asked this all the time, and I always have the same answer, dude. Like, you just got to talk to people. I mean, really, that's kind of the answer for life, honestly, is just like, you just got to talk to people. I know that's not the answer people want to hear, but yeah, because every team's different in terms of their skills, capabilities, platform limitations. You just don't know. All these things are opaque to you as a designer. There's serious like limitations in platforms. Like they cannot use these certain things, even if they wanted to, even if they have a really good skill set. Default guidelines, yeah, there's the Google material, and then those 4 different easing systems. Talk to your engineers, pick one, use that, you'll be fine. Okay, bunch of handoff questions. Okay, for the designers in the crowd who are currently working on case studies and want to implement live mockups, what would you suggest in terms of working and exporting methods and tips? Yeah, okay, so that's maybe a portfolio question, actually. Less handoff. So I don't do a ton of live mockups. Like I've just kind of specialized in After Effects. So I don't really do that. But people that I talk to, they tend to use Protopie, Framer, and Principle the most. Obviously, with COVID, that could change a lot. Like everybody went to, Figma overnight, basically. It was probably the largest single mass migration of designers in the entire history of our discipline in like a 6-week period or something. It was insane. But yeah, so those are the top 3 that I see, honestly, and they're totally solid. Question, how to document animations created by tools like Principle for engineering implementation. Yeah, again, it all depends on your team. There's huge variance. So, and extremes, right? So on one extreme, you have to redline your motion. You have to jump into whatever Figma and literally create a massive doc of frame by frame, and then write down the values in the of the properties and just like redline it. Now that's usually not common. That's usually kind of brutal. But I've done it. It's not the end of the world, whatever. At the other end, you can work with teams that are like so good with motion that you can just show them a render and a couple notes, and they'll just recreate it faithfully, and it'll look great. And then in the middle, you have teams that work with LottieFiles, which is essentially a way to export a JSON file, which is code from After Effects. It's a little file that they can put in directly into their app or website or product one-to-one, and it's amazing. So you have those options. And then tools like Principle are really good for packaging files and exporting directly to like engineers. So it really depends. Another handoff question, how to improve After Effects data assets handoff for the developers. Maybe a motion design system could be useful. Yeah, exactly. So if you had a motion design system, or if you were like building, just sketching one out, I would say even like a partial motion design system is better than none. But again, it's only as strong as the implementation capabilities from the engineering standpoint, right? If you're just going off and designing this thing and then being like, here's our motion design system, and you're giving it to like engineers, and they're like, you know what? That's not a collaborative process, right? This has to be highly collaborative. It has to work. It has to make things easier for everyone. So if you have that, yeah, I mean, ideally you would be designing it one-to-one in whatever tool, say with After Effects. And then when you hand off, that would be super easy. The way I think about it is help them help you, that's kind of the really good way to think about those things. Help them help you. Any other questions? Let's see, right? Yeah, okay. Related to After Effects versus other tools, when is it advantage to use After Effects over InVision, Principle, etc., where you can also show interactivity? As far as classes, Interaction Design Foundation is cheap and has tons of content. There you go. Cheap and tons of content. And again, I wouldn't spend 6 months watching UX classes. It's going to be the biggest waste of time. Most of the basics you can learn in a day or two, I'll be honest, if you have common sense. If you don't have common sense, it might take you months to just understand why certain things are better than other things, because a lot of it is not rocket science. I will say that. So that's a great tip, interactiondesign.org. Yeah, AE versus other tools. For me, it just comes down to like, several different factors, like because I specialize and because I'm lazy fundamentally, I've got really good at one thing. And so I just would rather do that. Whereas I have friends who are like, they want to learn every single prototyping tool and be really good at those things. Cool, more power to you. Like it really, we're all adults here. So, you do what you want to do, really. So you know, again, the benefit of After Effects is there's no limitations. So if you are working on pie in the sky projects, that's a huge advantage. If you're working on, you know, projects where you want to pass off, you know, create Lottie files, that's a huge advantage. I'd say those are the main advantages. You know, other than that, I never push After Effects. I'm not like, you should learn After Effects, right? Like, plenty of teams never need to learn it. But that being said, when I go in and I do a workshop with teams and I find out who the rock stars are and I see what tools they're using, they can almost always use After Effects. So kind of depends on where you're at, what you want to do, where you want to be. And again, you know, I'm not pushing for any tool, you know, it's really just like, you know, the right tool for the job. So for me, I take jobs where After Effects is the right tool for the job. Let's see here. What is the different categories of UI animations from Dustin? Yeah, I mean, again, you know, it's all just the same taxonomy. You know, it's kind of, you know, no new ground there, right? You have like transitions, components, pull to refresh, loaders, onboarding screens, you know, same kind of stuff. Lottie file, icon animations, you know, that kind of stuff. I don't know that anybody's like really been like written a PhD on the topic of the categories of UI animations, you know. How to improve After Effects data assets. Okay. I'm experienced in 2D, 3D animation. How do I best build pieces is a handoff question that speak to developers to help them understand what I bring to the table. Yeah, great question. Again, you got to be able to speak to the value of motion from the user, the product, and the business standpoint. I taught a motion in usability workshop with engineers had like 24 engineers in one workshop. This one company hired me to do a workshop, and they gave me 24 engineers. And I was like, this is going to go not well at all because I'm not an engineer. And, you know, this workshop's designed for UX designers, but I'll be damned, engineers, that was like one of the best workshops I taught. What I really found was that engineers also want to make great products. Now, sometimes they just need to understand why motion adds value. And if you're not sure how to do that, I have let's see here, motion. Let's see here. Let me just pull this up. I actually have an upcoming motion and usability workshop over Zoom. First time I'm doing it for the public in a couple weeks. So if you're interested in that, you can message me here or drop me a like email. I'm gonna make that super affordable. I just did the pilot one to a big design company, and we did a big training, and it was kick ass. So if you want to learn how to make a super compelling case for motion, which is what the workshop's all about, we don't use any After Effects or any software. It's completely agnostic, right? If you haven't seen it, it's basically a version of this. Let me just share this really quick. And I'm not selling you on this. It's just like, if you want this skill, you know, you can just check out my live Zoom workshops thing. So it's these outcomes in a Zoom workshop. So, you know, expand solution space, acquire new design vocabulary for presentation and ideation, synergize collaboration, you know, all this kind of stuff. Super, super important. So if you want to do that, I'll be sending out some emails in a bit on just how to do that. This doesn't link to the actual upcoming workshop. This just provides some information that you might find helpful. But yeah, so that's really what it comes down to, is like, and people make this mistake all the time. It's amazing. Like, designers have such a hard time talking about the value of motion, you know? And I just, I've been like interviewing like hiring managers because I have my certification course. And so I'm assessing people and really making sure they can deliver the outcomes that like hiring managers are looking for. And it's like over and over, it's like, they don't care about your ability to talk through the mechanics of an animation. You need to be able to speak to the value that this brings. You need to be able to clearly articulate the problem you're solving, the limitations imposed, you know, the hypothesis you generated, your solutions, and how you validated it. That's what people need to see in a portfolio, and really just day to day, that's also the skill they need to have. What kind of position would someone with motion AE and UX UI go for? Would it be an interaction designer? Sure. I mean, look, again, it just depends where you are on the spectrum. I'm a hustler. I think the economy is crazy right now. I would take any job that pays me well, that I don't hate, that I can get if I was looking for a job. Honestly, I wouldn't be that picky if I could just lock it in and know that the company was going to be okay. I mean, this is just straight talk right now. You know, if you want like pie in the sky and you really want to hold out for the best thing, go for it. You know, if you've got the means to do that. If not, dude, I would just lock something in and just wait this thing out. You know, it's crazy. You know, I've talked to people that just have to shut down their like companies, or they're like one project away from shutting down their company, you know? So I don't know. I don't really know. But trying to answer that, some with motion AE and UI UX. I mean, look, if you have UI UX, you're strong there, you're strong in motion, you're automatically going to have an advantage over everybody else. Like I've talked to hiring managers and they're like, look, we look at gorgeous portfolios, but if people, and if their UX portfolios with motion, it automatically catches their eye, it adds more value, they're looking for that. And if you can speak to the value of your projects and not just talk about the mechanics, or show like really cool motion that has no benefit for products, then that's probably not going to go well during the like interview. But if you can speak to the value, you're going to be in a really, really good shape. Okay, I'm just going to keep blasting through these. Okay, well, another handoff question. When working with engineers, what's the best way to hand off your design so that they understand the motion, easing, etc.? I've worked with engineers before, but never any projects that included motion. Yeah. So we covered the easing systems. We covered durations on Google Material. We've covered talk to your engineers first and find out, tell them you're doing motion and work it out with them. You know, the best handoff. The worst thing you can possibly do is say, hey, I took this guy's workshop, or I was on a Zoom call with him and he said, you know, you should just do it and then hand them files and it will all be great and you should do it this way, because that's not the way it is. You know, you really got to be able to like engage in these conversations and figure out, work collaboratively with your engineers to help them help you win. If you just show up with a bunch of stuff, you have like a 5% chance that that's handoff is going to go smoothly and you're going to be happy and they're going to be happy. If you create partnership, you know, at the very beginning, guess what? Everybody's going to be happy and you're all going to be friends. So, you know, again, just talking to people. Okay, I have an installing question. Hey, Issara, I'm not able to install Bodymovin as AE plugin on my Mac. So Bodymovin is a plugin that allows you to export JSON files from After Effects so that your engineers can use them in products. I downloaded the ZXP. You need a special ZXP installer for installing plugins in After Effects. And then says cannot find a compatible program, which makes no sense since I have a desktop version of most blah blah blah. Do you any suggestions what I can do? Okay, yeah. So first of all, upgrade to everything the latest. I've heard lots of glitches just with incompatible things. So you can go to aescripts.com. We'll just do this real quick. This down. So you go to aescripts.com. And then you go under support tools. I'll just paste the link in here as the XP installer. I would just make sure you have the latest version of this. And I'll just post that in the chat. And the latest version of the Bodymovin plugin. And if that doesn't work, you can just go to the LottieFiles website and download their After Effects plugin. They've got a great, I've actually switched over from Bodymovin to this as a free plugin. It kicks ass. You can use it in After Effects to preview your work. It's just really, really cool. So this is all privately. Oh, are these messages going? So I'm posting stuff in the chat, but I'm seeing that they're all going, Issara to everyone, Sabine. Let me just make sure I'm typing to everyone, to me privately. Can somebody just type in the thing and let me know that they're getting the links that I'm putting in the chat? If not, they've gone to private people and then I need to just repost those. I don't see the links. No, any of the links. Fuck yeah. All right. So it just defaults to like the person who wrote me. Okay, I'm just gonna scroll back. So, okay, I see. Here's the one. Wow. Can I just post to everyone, please? Everyone in meeting. Okay, this is how to sell motion to stakeholders to everyone. here is the Google Material Motion link here. Let's see here. There was, okay, here's the 4 easing systems. Dude, okay, learned that one. So again, this is Cubic Bezier, easings.net, the Apple fucked up name, easing things, and then we already have the link for the Google Material. Here's the one for the on-site, the Zoom workshops, like outcomes, if you want to learn how to sell motion to stakeholders and speak to the value of motion and design motion that makes better products. And then here's the AE scripts. If you wanted the link to the ZXP installer. And then here's the LottieFiles free plugin, which I've switched over to using from Bodymovin. Wow. Sorry about that. Okay, let me just catch up on this. Everyone's like not getting the links. That is a negative, but it did say private. Okay, what about the ease in link? I'm not sure what that is. Someone's lucky. All right, cool. Whew. All right, I gotta thank you for that. All right, great. That's annoying. I'll learn that next time. Okay, great. So let's go back, check out these things. Oh, I lost my document here. Let me just pull this up again. Where's my questions? Okay. All right. Let me just check in with everybody. I know we're just kind of blasting through this stuff, but I did get asked a lot of questions. I wanted to make sure you did get stuff. Just want to check in. How's everybody doing? Thursday. How's your weeks going? Everybody's week okay? Hope everybody's hanging in there. Hope you have a pet. If you don't have a pet, you should get a pet at this point. Any kind of animal, just be good to it, you know, make sure you can take care of it. Chickens are great, but you get very emotionally attached and they don't live that long. And then it's very sad, very sad. I like all animals. I think probably humans last, I'll be honest. I mean, I do like people, but like I like other animals more generally. I'm intrigued by the chickens. Yeah, big learning curve. The first time they took a dust bath, we thought they just died. So we looked outside our window and they were all lying on their sides. Their legs were stretched out. Their wings were stretched out. They just looked dead. And we were like, what the fuck, you know? So we were like online, like, what happened to my chickens, you know? And people were like, oh yeah, no, they're just lying in this, they're just bathing in the sun and they may be taking a dust bath. They're just lying down in the sun. Super scary. We thought we just killed them all, but no, they're very cute little dinosaurs. Plus they're little dinosaurs, you know, I mean, what's better than that? Would you be able to provide the Excel spreadsheets with all your answers? Sure. Getting a pet bird, yeah, that's cool. Just make sure it's not like a wild bird that's been, there's a huge horrifying wild animal market where they just basically capture wild animals and then like sell them to humans who just abuse them. So if you're getting a pet bird, just make sure it's like kind of a domestic pet bird and not one where they like, you know, call it like trimming the wings so it can't fly, which is basically animal mutilation, you know, which is super awesome thing to do to living things. Okay, chickens wake up really early. Yeah, they do. I actually want a rooster. I think they sound really great, but you can't have them in the city legally, and like neighborly people will just kill you probably. All right, just checking in. Everybody doing okay? Seems like everybody's doing okay. Nobody's said they're having a hard week. If you're having a hard week, I hear you. It is a crazy year. It is a crazy year. Okay, let's jump back into these. Okay, handoff, installing. Yeah, so if we're installing, just to wrap that up, latest versions of everything. If that doesn't work, try the LottieFiles. If that doesn't work, dude, you got to reinstall all your stuff because you got some major problem. Miscellaneous question. Okay, this is crazy. Okay, so this person wrote me, said, do you know if there's a plugin or script that attempts to convert an After Effects composition to HTML, CSS? 3, not interested in Bodymovin or Lottie. Anreas Koller created this. It'll be super helpful to know if something similar, easy to use. I'm going to share this. This is crazy. I actually didn't know this existed. And then when I watched the link, I was like, okay, this is crazy. I'll post this in the chat to one person so nobody else can see it. Just kidding. I did that. Why does it default to that? You jerk. Okay, here you go. Jeffrey Nevels, you're getting all my messages. You're stoked. Okay, that's to everyone now. Check this out. So I don't know if you can see this. This person's in After Effects. They use this plugin. I actually spent like an hour when I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I researched the person's name and the plugin, couldn't find a single thing anywhere. But check this out. They're in After Effects, they build a composition, they hit the plugin thing, they pop over to this other tool, and then it just rebuilds. Gotta wait for it. It just rebuilds in code, and it's there, and they can make changes. So that's insane. That seems like potentially a game changer. I couldn't find anything about this. I mean, I found this person, but they didn't post anything about this. So if you're out there, if you're researching, if you want to learn more and you find something, yo, send it my way, because that's like crazy. Look at that. Keyframes in some keyframer cloud app.net thing. I mean, wow. That's cool. I'm always looking on for cool stuff like this, you know, so kudos. That's great. All right. So what's the salary in your expectations after UX and motion course? Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think if you had like no other skills and you just did that, you know, like I've designed it to be more of like add-ons for skill sets and to put you over the top and to have it be more of a slam dunk. So if you have these kind of like base skill set that I kind of assume everybody, you know, is like, you know, low six figures kind of thing. So, but if you have no other skills, like you came in from like, I don't know, like being a person, like a chicken farmer or something, and you wanted to learn this, I don't know, you know, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I have friends who came in from completely different backgrounds, learned this stuff quickly, and now they've got a great tech job making six figures, you know? So I don't know, depends on where you are in the world, in the country, all these things. But yeah, I mean, average really, you know, good tech job is that. Can you please build us an interaction library template? My answer is hell to the no. That is a nightmare that I have no patience for. Somebody out there might do it. I've seen crazy, like people who just go down the rabbit hole with this, with After Effects and building component libraries and all this stuff. And it is like, it quickly reaches a point where it's like you need like an onboarding PhD degree just to be able to jump in and make changes. You know, what I found is like every project's different. And so the standards, designing standards help, but yeah, hell to the no. But if you want to do it, I'd be happy to talk to you about it, like, and give you some pointers, because I have some ideas, but yeah, that sounds awful. Will After Effects ever develop an interactive part? I mean, maybe plugin or integration tool for simulations excluding XD. Is it expected that you know something on the horizon? Yeah. So I do talk with the After Effects engineering team from time to time. And I got to say, it is hard to say. I would not count on it. I would keep checking in. I find that it is kind of a mess over there. They're great people, but like they really don't prioritize this stuff at all. And they're generally like, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 years behind the curve specifically with interaction stuff like this. So, but it could be something that's in the works, top secret. And like all of a sudden we just wake up and they're like, oh, hey, you can now completely preview your work, your After Effects work on your phone, and it's interactive. I mean, basically what they need to do is just make a plugin or whatever that ties to an app, like a little preview app on your phone. There's places that have done this, that they have like third-party companies. It's all private, but they've created like fully interactive After Effects prototyping on devices using some custom tool. So it's possible. It's been done. Will they do it? I don't know. I'm not holding my breath. But if they do, yeah, that'd be a game changer, you know, because then you could prototype it, total fidelity, total control, pie in the sky, and then just add basic things like swipe and tap. I've wrote to them. I've posted a blog post about this. So yeah, I mean, dude, crazy, right? Miscellaneous question. I'm interested more in heads-up display type design and animation for gaming environments. Please give me some advice on how to carry my current skills into the space. Yeah, I don't really know too much about that, but if I saw some examples, I could definitely point you into the right direction with that. Let's see here. What else? Learn squared for for HUD UI design. There you go, Chris, to everyone. That sounds like a good thing. Okay, motion background to UX. I'm coming from motion design. I know how to use After Effects, but I don't have background in UI design. Do I need to learn UI design? You doing the stills first? If not, what are the websites to grab good UI file concepts that work in real life for my animations? Yeah, so here's what I recommend. Again, you have to learn the basics, right? You have to learn the basics to play at this. So you want to learn Sketch, Figma, probably Adobe XD. At a minimum, learn Figma right now. Spend half a day. These things are super easy to learn. The basics of, again, watch a cheap, top-rated UX course. Don't spend a ton of money. UX basics are super easy to learn. You just got to be able to learn so you can speak with designers. Now, I will say also, and I think I have another question about this, here's the other question that it relates to. I'm a motion designer looking to make a jump into UI, UX animation. Would you recommend creating a portfolio or reel specifically for UX, UI animation? I'll answer both those questions. So yes, if your content has to be somewhat relevant. But here's the thing: if you want to do those spec projects, which I totally encourage you to do, you're going to want to use very visually awesome design assets. Now, how do you get those? Well, there's a lot of templates that are out there, and paid and free resources. I think the coolest thing to do is find a great designer on Dribbble or Behance that is just cranking out amazing screens without motion, and just offer to collaborate. Like, they send you the screens and you send them like animations, and then you get crazy high quality portfolio pieces. People really don't do this. I love these collaboration projects, but yeah, I mean, you really, if your background's in motion and you're building that portfolio because you want to get the job, make sure your stuff is UI relevant. Check out my articles on Medium. I actually wrote a bit about this. Here, I'm gonna stories. Where's my publications? So here's my here, I'll just post a link to my UX and motion publication in the chat. Everyone. Okay, I would like to type in here, and now it won't let me type in the chat. Cool. Let's see here. Huh. Chat. Okay. Okay. Well, apparently my chat window crashed. I'll just share screen. Okay. So if you go to medium.com/UX in motion with hyphens, I've posted a whole bunch of writings here. So a lot of it's on strategy. So what you might want to do is look at the article, how to transition from motion background into UX, and how to integrate UI animation strategically into your portfolio. These two might be useful. So I'll talk about that. And again, you really want to be able, in your portfolio, you have to be able to speak to the problem you're solving, limitations, hypothesis, validation, all this kind of stuff. And we'll talk about that shortly. Okay, cool. Let's see here. Chat, oh, chat is working now. Cool, there we go. Everyone just posted that link. Okay, let's keep cruising. What do we got? Okay, portfolio questions. How to get a fresher UI, UX design job at Google using your Animotion. So yeah, build a strong portfolio with good examples that showcase your ability to clearly define problems, limitations, solution, and validation process and results. Portfolio, what types of motion projects do you suggest I include in my portfolio? What would you like to see if you were the hiring manager? Yeah, so definitely a range. You know, I always like to show really, really hot stuff. But you have to contextualize it and say, look, this is a skill I have. I understand this is not solving a motion, a usability problem. This is not designed to make products better. I'm showcasing my skills. And so you need to be able to do this in your portfolio, because if you show really hot stuff, but it has no relevance, but you're like, look, I can design products, hiring managers are going to think that you have no idea what you're talking about. And that could possibly be true. So it won't matter how good your skills are. They're looking for a person who can solve problems, right? And so you need to be able to demonstrate that. So I would definitely include some really hot examples, but then I would really have some examples where I'm like, look, there was too much cognitive load between these two states, so we used motion as a transition to keep the user in the task domain. We worked up these examples here, and this is the one that we think was the best, and here's why. So that kind of stuff. Yeah, please show us how to build a catchy Behance portfolio for UX UI project. You want to start with, you want to make sure your visuals and reasoning is solid. Probably don't have too much time to go into that. Selling, I heard that developers are going to hate our animations if we get too creative. Is it true? Absolutely, yes, that is 100% true. You need to make a strong case with your engineers and get them on board with why this adds value, help them help you. Okay, we're talking about motion standards. Okay, here's a good question about strategy. I like strategy a lot, and then we'll jump into testing, because I know there were a lot of questions about testing. Okay, strategy. Whenever I go across Dribbble to get some inspiration from new projects, I see many designs which are complex and animated with loads of tricky animations and micro interactions. Many of these designs won't get to the development stage. So is it good to design like that? It all depends. Sometimes, absolutely. I've done projects where they just wanted you to push it, and that was what the project was. You make it as awesome as you can, and then we'll figure out if there's value there or not. Sometimes you need to put something out there, stake in the ground way far away, and see what happens. Honestly, sure. And sometimes that's like literally the worst thing you could possibly do. If you're working on a project that is going to go into a product, and if you don't know what the platform limitations are your like engineering limitations, and you're just designing, these crazy projects, they're going to be like, this guy's, or human, not guy, this person is a pain in the ass, So you really got to read the room, and you really got to calibrate your work and your strategy. I find like knowing when and where to do those things is super important and advanced, and will serve you well in life, just if you can calibrate and read the room. How often do you see need for After Effects to be used via other prototyping tools? It all depends. I see it a lot because I get hired for that, but other people, potentially never. All right, talk about testing. Whole bunch of questions on testing. What tool do you use to test animations? When testing animations, what should I focus on? How do you test motion transitions? Why would we choose? Okay, these are all testing questions. So yeah, great question. For me, testing comes down to like two things, right? It comes down to data, which is like hard testing, right? Which is great, which is like you do something and then you either do it, you test it in a user group, or you run it live to a small group of people, on your product, and you get data, and you get conversion data, or you just try and validate it however you can. Look, if you're in school and you want to validate, just do a user study group with 10 people and just graph out the data, because at the end of the day, what's important is that you understand that validation is an important part of the process and that you can demonstrate that. At the extreme end, there are companies that specialize in user testing, and I did a workshop with King. They make Candy Crush, and I learned from them that they do a lot of user testing, and they send out motion study renders to usability testing companies who will do like eye tracking and stuff. So that's at the extreme end. I also know that companies like Google do internal testing with eye tracking, but they just don't really publish the data. So just get in the mindset that that's a really important thing, is looking for ways to validate. And even if nothing else, just grab a couple people and just say, hey, and then just put that data into a spreadsheet and make some graphs. It's really, really helpful. What should you focus on? I actually, in one of my Medium essays here, I actually listed a ton of things that you could focus on. So I'll just pull this up, the link real quick, and then you can read that at your leisure. Okay, here's a ton of things that you could focus on if you want. So it's called Motion Design Digital Products, a white paper. And at the end, I think, maybe at the end here, here's 16 possible metrics, you know, ease of use, task success rate, keeping users oriented and during context switching, helping users stay focused in the task domain rather than the interface domain, flow state, trust rating, minimizing confusion and frustration, speed of use, ways to combine interaction, perception, confusion moments, form completion, list of detailed transitions, feedback, expectation, recollection of key interface elements, task prioritization. All these things are badass, right? So if you were able to just like do something, I'll post that link in there, that'd be kick-ass, right? You would have something and you'd be able to speak to that process, even if it wasn't like a real, like a quote unquote real project that made it into some real world, you know, product kind of thing. Okay, a couple more questions. Tools. All right. Wow, I actually blasted through these. That's amazing. Hopefully this is helping. Maybe this is overwhelming. If it's overwhelming, let me know and I can change the format. Why did we choose After Effects? Yeah, we talked about this. Industry standard. What's the industry most used software? Well, right now I'd say probably Figma. So learn that. It's easy to learn. You know, Prototype, Framer, XD, Principle, After Effects. Those are kind of the common ones. Honestly, whatever's the right tool for the job that moves you forward would be my top priority. What tools, plugins work best to get from After Effects to interactive prototypes to share? There's a Figma plugin that you can for Lottie that lets you drop in LottieFiles. So you can work on something in After Effects, bring it into the Lottie platform, drop it into Figma. That's cool. That's kind of it. There isn't like a lot of really solid workflows. You're more looking at like rendering videos and GIF files and using those as references. Okay, let me pop back in here. Okay. Curious about your thoughts on speaking to engineering developers, performance of Lottie. Often there's a lot of bloat within the libraries it currently is versus having animated videos. Yeah, talk to your engineers. I'm not a technical engineer. I don't know. They can either use it or they can't, and they're either happy or they're not. That's kind of been my experience. If they're not, then you find something else like animated SVG and figure that out. What is the difference between an interaction designer and a UX designer? Because when I go to the job description, it's the same thing. Yeah, that might be above my pay grade. Good question. I think you could just Google that one. UX designers. Okay, here we go. Thank you, Justin. UX designer designs the experience, the overall flow and logic. Interaction designer smooths things out and makes things intuitive. There you go. On a gaming industry perspective, how much would UX design help towards community management, Twitch, YouTube, streaming, and marketing? How much would UX design help towards community? You mean like UX designers designing things that people use? I'd say probably a lot, and all those people have teams of UX designers making products. Don't know if I understood that correctly. If you're just asking like, do people designing better products make better products? The answer is probably yes, I would guess. Okay, Overlord. Oh, Overlord, dude. Yeah. So this guy, Adam Plouffe, is this rad dude. I've talked to him. He's a great guy. He wrote plugins that take you from Sketch to After Effects and from Figma to After Effects, which is great, and which is also scary because if something happens to Adam, we're all screwed, all of us. I've told Adobe they should just buy his plugins, so you know, from him or whatever, lease them or something, so we're not like worried about that. Overlord is how you get shape layers from Illustrator to After Effects. There's no other way. Well, you can manually click on the layer in After Effects and say convert to shape layer, but it's a huge pain in the ass and it never turns out right. It sucks. But he wrote a plugin where you can just click, take your whole like Illustrator composition, bring it as shape layers, and then you can animate the shapes and the text and the type and all this stuff. It's amazing. Game changer. And honestly, how insane is it that two Adobe tools can't even talk to each other? Like, it's mind-boggling sometimes. I mean, I love Adobe, great people, everything, but like, holy crap, like you cannot import your Illustrator file into After Effects with shape layers natively. Like how hard is that just to make happen? Like, what would it take, like 6 hours of engineering time just to do that? And then we could all have that? I don't know. I find that shocking. But Adam solved that problem. You should buy his plugin. He's a great guy. We actually have a lot in common, aside from all the tattoos, which he has, and I clearly don't. Yeah, works with gradients as well, which is huge. So if you do work in like Illustrator, you're gonna need to buy that plugin. Dude, 12 o'clock. That just cruised by fast. I hope you all got some value from that. Thanks for being here. If you have any follow-up questions, you can hit me up on my email, or you can just quickly chat in here. And then if you want to know more about this upcoming motion and usability workshop, or if you want like an After Effects UI, like animation workshop, I'm working on that. But don't have that yet. That should be coming out soon. Photo of the chickens. Raul has a few questions. Okay, I'm going to put in my email here at uxinmotion.net. I'm going to close this out in a second, but I'll just make sure that you will have that. So you can just hit me up there, and then I'll be doing this every sometime. So I'll just be compiling questions, and then we'll go through them on the next call. Actually, might be these exact same questions. Hopefully not, but it might be. So anyway, thank you all for being here. I hope that helped your week a little bit, whatever you're dealing with. I know we're all pretty stressed, but just having some dude just ramble on about technical nonsense is probably at least somewhat distracting for all of us at this point. And I'll be looking for someone to do that for me, so I can just kind of just passively sit back and just get drinking from a fire hose for an hour. Anyway, thanks so much for being here. Yeah, you guys have, in every gender, people, not guys, people, you all people, have a good week, and may your gender pronouns be respected forever. All right, take care. Bye.